At the foot of the Buea mountain lives a man, less known but not less profound. His input into the Cameroon political story will be told for centuries to come. He lives a rather modest life here in this environment that still emits the good fresh air that we all breathe. But he remains an historical colossus and a living archive. His name is Emmanuel Mbwaye, the cameraman who holds the key to Cameroon's political past. To get a better grasp of his contribution to the country's development, one needs to start by getting some insight into the man himself. Needless to say, it is only his voice that may really count in this narrative.
I was born here in Buea on the 2nd of August 1928 by Sango Peter Mbwaye Wana and Nanyango Rose Namondo take a line there. I was educated in government school Buea, then St. Joseph's College, Sase. After my education in Sase, I passed a common entrance and I was admitted in Films Unit, Ekona, by Sir Ralph Stoneham, Director of Welfare and Social Services, who was in that interview box. And so I was posted to meet Mr. F.H. Knight from the Colonial Film Unit, who was head of the Films Unit of CDC. And there I learned photography, also film production. In 1964, I had a British Council scholarship to study photography in Blackpool Technical College and School of Arts. And when I was going to England too, I wanted to be a member of the Institute of Incorporated Photographers. I carried pictures with me. But when I went there, they told me that they did not need my pictures. My pictures are with them. That their embassies were in Cameroon, not for nothing. And they showed me what I took. They said, I'm already a member of the Institute of Incorporated Photographers of Britain. After Blackpool, I was attached to the Central Office of Information, London, then the Daily Mirror newspapers, before coming back to Cameroon. So I had an opportunity again to go to Italy, where I did color photography and television in the Naples Canal 21. And so I came out from the CDC as a cinema cameraman and photographer, from overseas as a television cameraman.
With some 88 years to his credit, Mr. Mbwaye still works with the energy and stamina of a young man. And this alone speaks volumes about this man, whose incisive thoughts and photographic professionalism has left Cameroon with a cultural wealth unparalleled in recent history. He still finds time out of his retirement home to visit the archives in Buea, whose existence can be rightly attributed to his tenacious initiative, his care, and his tenderness. Mbwaye believes these attributes need to be handed down to future generations. He still can paint a rather vivid picture of his professional trajectory. It was a trajectory so professional that government had to deprive him of some of his rights just to make sure that things went right. He looks back at that period with a lot of pride, although there were moments of disappointment.
I was head of the photographic section and the films unit as a cine projectionist. I was in charge of all the senior service cinema shows. Then government wanted me to open the section in government. And so Dr. Ndeli late and Pamuna late, they came to persuade my boss to let me go to government. They refused, but then they said that that will show that my boss was training Cameroonians. So they let me go. But then one condition was I was due to 3 months leave. I would not go. I was to train people during those 3 months. When they ended, that is when I went to government. Same day I left CDC, I took the keys over from government. Now, the information service was directly under the deputy commissioner. Sir J.J. Bolman was the deputy commissioner. And where I worked under him. I took the oath of service, and I covered all official ceremonies, including general things of interest in the whole country. I was covering the whole of the southern Cameroon. Started with the colonial master, J.O. Field was commissioner then. After he left, when politics came strong in the hands of ourselves, I found myself with the governors, the prime ministers, and that is how I worked in government, covering all delicate assignments. And I was employed in so global, which attracted no allowances, risk or so, until a presidential decree gave me an index, and then I was due those amenities. Even then, I've never tasted any of those amenities till today. That notwithstanding, it did not reduce my output. And I did exactly for the southern Cameroon what my colleagues were doing in Nigeria. I initiated a miniature public relations department. We had a driver projectionist, and so we were showing films around the country on education, community development, entertainment like Charlie Chaplin, then newsreels of current events. We were borrowing films from various places and showing, returning after we had shown them. This was very, very well. When I covered the head of state, President Amadou Ahidjo, photographically, I also used my own Bell & Howell 16mm camera simultaneously, and I produced a film of his tour from Buea to Nkambe. I sent this film to Yaoundé for reproduction. That copy never came back, and that was the end. So that narrative, which would have been historic, was gone. Finally, when I was transferred from the photographic section to the cinema section proper, where I was in charge of all cinema houses in the country, exploiters to check, to make sure that illegal films did not enter, to make sure that the cinema films that were shown were of the right type, certificate A films for adults. So we make sure that children would not go in to see adult films. And in the market, the traders were showing all sorts of video cassettes to school children. So, but this was checked because police went around cinema houses, so we made sure that discipline was observed as far as film showing and production was concerned. Also, the cinema houses were changed to make sure that complete outlets, urinaries, everything hygienic standards. And like one cinema house in Kumba, where the fans, wall fans, were substituted for the ceiling fans because a fan fell and killed someone. So we made sure that all the fans were wall fans, not ceiling fans. And you had to check with the standards to make sure that they lived up to standards. So that is what I did in the cinema section. And I retired from active service on the 30th of June 1987. When I was due retirement, government asked me to wait till the end of the financial year to avoid a blank. I worked for 7 months without a salary.
Working for months without a salary was perhaps the price Mbwaye had to pay for present and future generations to enjoy the history of their country written down on pictures. The building still seems never to have been modernized, but the handiwork of one man has become a golden source of wealth for a country that only seems to be discovering the importance of archives today. The photographic laboratory has no doubt acquired new technology, and this technology could perhaps be the saving hand that will make Mbwaye's work last for centuries. His only regret is that public authorities never seemed at one time to care about the need for continuity, despite his repeated pleas upon retirement. Still, he knows he has lived a fulfilled professional life.
It is only unfortunate that before I left the photographic section, we had wonderful documentation, a photo librarian, with every negative from the day it was taken, the assignment, everything recorded well. This lady retired now of late, Mrs. Martha Mosinga. But instead of employing someone whom this woman would have taught, they did not. The boys we trained were in Yaoundé. I even pleaded that one should come there, James Harimboua, whom we trained. Stephen Sab, you knew in Yaoundé, was my driver projectionist. He was head of a cinema unit in Yaoundé. I trained many photographers who were all scattered around. So I'm satisfied that my knowledge has been passed to younger generations. And when I retired, I had part-time teaching on photography with prison school, then the university. I had an award from the University of Buea on my contribution in photojournalism.
Through the Adener couple, Mr. and Mrs. Adener, he was able to get them to set up these photo archives and keep it in the way it is, and even the, let me say, the document archives, the paper archives, which are there, you know, they set it up, and it has been a beautiful a way of preserving and protecting our collective memory in this country, our heritage, you know, in this country. And I think that he has had enormous contribution in this regard.
We worked hand in hand. Everything, the old people I took, the pictures were in the archives. The colonial masters, the governor of Nigeria, when he was in Nigeria, he was governor. When he came to Southern Cameroon, he was styled High Commissioner. And he had pictures with the various leaders, Dr. Ndeli, Mr. Muna, and so on, and Joa. They are all there in the archives displayed for people to see.
I've been able to initiate some project of digitalizing the photo archives that we have, because the material that is stocked in there has been deteriorating as time goes on because of climatic conditions, because not proper care is given to them, because of age too. Luckily, I met a group of Swiss researchers and we discussed about it. They saw the archives and took interest in it, and they said that they would help us to digitalize the archives so that we can have everything now as a digital record, which is going to stay longer, is going to be better preserved, and future generations can use it. And I must say that once we entered into this arrangement, I informed the Minister of Communication, who has been very supportive of this.
Many today may never care about what becomes of their lifetime works, but not this man, whose daily concern is to see his legacy live on for centuries to come. The Cameroon archives in Buea, no doubt, deteriorated over time, but there are now efforts to save what can be saved. With modern technology, government is now working with a group of Swiss researchers within the framework of what is known as Endangered Archives Project. It is this project that will save what remains of the impressive work Mbwaye did many years ago. What until now has been in analog form is being digitized. Making the material digital or electronic will save on storage space and preserve it for future generations, besides making access to material just a matter of a click on the keyboard.
I belong to a team of researchers constituting the Basel University. And this team is called the African Photography Initiatives, and we work from 5 years.
We belong to a team of researchers from Basel University called African Photography Initiatives. And for 5 years, we have been studying photography in Africa on several topics.
Studied here in the University of Buea 10 years ago. He knew the archive.
One of the persons in the team, which started work in the University of Buea 10 years ago, discovered the Buea archives. We have been here for 2 assessment meetings and to acquaint ourselves with the photographic archives at the Buea Press Center, which is under the Ministry of Communication.
And then this archive have a huge volume of photos. We don't know exactly, but near 150,000 photos.
This archive has a very huge volume of photographs. There are about 150,000 negatives taken during the period from 1955 to 1990. It is a mysterious house, but this photographic material is already getting bad because of the humidity in this area.
Is already alive. We thought that the importance of the archives.
We thought that the importance of the archive is considerable, so we agreed to contact the organ in charge of libraries in the whole world, which accepted our proposal. We also had the support of the Swiss Ministry of Culture. We will be here for some months. I don't know how long.
Some months, it depends how long. And our objective is scanning all the ground sheets that was the sheets of the...
Our duty is to scan all the ground sheets, that is, the sheets and the photo contacts, covering all types of events, political, social, cultural, covered during the then Ministry of Information and Culture.
Ministry of Culture of Information, who was before, and to scanning the negatives, some of the negatives, because there is a lot of negatives, some of them. And
to scan some of the negatives and put them in new envelopes, new papers, which will stop the chemical degradation process of the photographic material.
The chemical processes of the material photographic. In one second step, when the material will be...
In the second phase, after scanning, we will conduct another research project, which will bring together students of our university in Basel and those of the University of Buea through the image research history technology. It is important to preserve these archives for future generations in Cameroon. to avoid them from disappearing, because some of this material is already in a very bad condition due to humidity.
Some of these materials are already very bad, with champignons and with the very bad conditions. It's normal.
We are putting these documents in soft copies, both the pictures or the negatives and the ground sheets. After that, we keep them in a special hard disks that we store, we back up. So we know if something happens to the computer, we can always get it from the hard disks. We can also keep them in CDs. When you have people going into the archives from time to time, we know they touch some of these negatives, they destroy them, they misplace them. At times, the writings that are on them, they wiped off. We don't see them clearly because of when they touch them too much. If we put them in this digital form, it is easier for people to access them because you don't need to touch a whole box of this one. You don't see it. You take the next box. We simply use a small listing, a small form that we fill all the negatives and we describe the pictures on them, an Excel sheet. We use them. With that, you can find the negative that you want by simply typing the name of a simple event, or if you're looking for somebody, a portrait of somebody, you type the name, you type the year. It depends on what you're looking for. But you can just find from the computer and it's easy.
Cameroon's collective culture and history may never be adequately written if no effort is made to retrieve what might have been said, written, or photographed many years ago. What is happening at the archives in Buea could jolly well be replicated to other government departments. The Southwest Regional Delegation of Communication, for instance, contains hundreds of reel-to-reel tapes that have been locked up in a room. No one knows what those tapes contain, but what is certain is that retrieving them could lead the country into a fresh world of knowledge about the country's past. That seems to be government's immediate concern for now.
I think that if I open the door and the pictures as the reel-to-reel are still in good condition, then what we are going to do is continue with the digitalization of the same pictures in the same way that the diapositives are being digitalized now. That is how we are going to extend this arrangement that we have with the Swiss under what they call the Endangered Archives Program, EAP. So we are going to work with them so that they can now digitalize the reel-to-reel, and in the same way we achieve the result of preserving and protecting our collective history.
Mr. Mbwaye can be adequately described as a man of exceptional qualities. He knew what he was good at and maximized on that strength, lifting the art of photography to a different pedestal. His vibrant compositions often depict subjects in a kind of suspended animation, their halted motion suggesting a larger narrative in the space of a single incident. He is passionate about his work and brings much more to shoots than just a photograph. And for that, he has earned the adulation of all and sundry.
Mr. Mbwaye, he was one of the photographers of the West Cameroon Information Service, and when all the different transitions in the history of Cameroon evolved, he too became still a photographer in the Ministry of Information and Culture as it then was. And eventually he retired, as everybody is bound to retire from sometime in his career. And to talk about him as a man, I think that I have never met a man who is so passionate about what he does. I've never met a man who is so committed and who is so focused on what he does. He's a photographer, and I think that he lifted the art of photography into a completely different pedestal from what we see other people trying to do here. Somebody, to him, he saw photography as an art, and he continues to do it. He continues to do it very passionately. Since the 4 years I've been here, Mr. Mbwaye has been of enormous support. We have a photo archives in this delegation, and I can tell you that about 98% of what we have in that archives are pictures filmed by Mr. Mbwaye. So he knows the archives better than any other person around here. Mbwaye is just the history of Cameroon, pre-independence Cameroon, independence Cameroon, reunification Cameroon, and until this. So he covered almost everything. He covered West Cameroon negotiating for autonomy from Nigeria. He covered Cameroonians going to the United Nations to still negotiate for unification of Cameroon in 1961. He covered Cameroon in 1972 when they were doing the 20th May reunification. He covered everything. Mr. Mbwaye is just an icon of photography, and Mr. Mbwaye is simply the history of, this part of Cameroon before reunification.
Early 1980, I was recruited in Radio Cameroon and sent to Radio Buea. And Mbwaye was in the photography section of that delegation. So we were interacting on a daily basis. So we were virtually covering every assignment with Mbwaye. Mbwaye, with a sharp eye, got some very striking images that when we came back, we always went onto his ground sheet to look at what he had taken, because that helped us to get the hidden angles of stories which we could not see. When the former head of state, President Ahmadu Ahijo, came to Buea, and he landed with his helicopter at the presidential palace besides the radio. And when, well, you know the kind of aura that surrounded the former head of state, it wasn't easy for any cameraman at the time to actually go so close and take certain shots. But Mbwaye was very daring. That is the first thing that caught my attention. While the helicopter was coming down, despite the resistance from the Republican guards, Mbwaye forced himself, and he was not just standing. There were times when he went on his back to pick the good shots of the helicopter coming down. And because of that, when the head of state came down, he rushed and was leaning by the side of the helicopter. The security officers were pushing him. While he was holding them with one hand, he was active with the camera with another hand. But let me take you back into history. The chief judge of West Cameroon at the time, a white, Chief Justice Cottrand, a British, they were going on a tour to Mamfe, and the road was so bad. So when they got to one point, in fact, the Justice Cottrand had to be carried on someone's back to go through the muddy area because the vehicle could not move. Mbwaye had those shots, let alone the mountain race. He gave us shots, especially the winner, one of the fastest boys, left the stadium, got to the summit first, and came down, entered the stadium first, got to the winning line, he could not cross. He fell on the line. And some of us left with a lot of emotions to go and carry his leg and pull his leg so that the leg could go across the line. Mbwaye got all those shots.
He's one man who loves development. Mbwaye did a lot to help develop this village. We hired a caterpillar, a government caterpillar, which was doing the work from a neighboring village, Buea, and we signed a contract with him. He also took over greatly to develop the health center, which is just a stone throw. He dragged one Mrs. Cross, who we still remember in this village till now.
These graves are a patent testimony to the fact that Mr. Mbwaye has had his own fair share of sadness. He has lost both his parents, but has immortalized them by constructing these graves, the same way he immortalizes historic moments in the country's history through pictures.
But they told me that you are no longer using a stick now. That you've been so revived and renewed. That you're no longer
Still, he remains a happy man. A polygamist by practice and conviction, Mr. Mbwaye has built a happy home, a family blessed with children and grandchildren, and united by a common purpose.
Hello. How are you?
The very core values he holds dear, the values of self-discipline, hard work, commitment to duty, and honesty are now part of a legacy he is leaving for his children. Contrary to most polygamous homes, where jealousy and quarreling usually become the norm, Mbwaye has been able to mold the jangling discords that usually characterize polygamous homes into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
The relation be there fine. Even right now, so they fine.
Our relationship was good. Even now that I am ill and living here with our daughter, he visits me. We raised our children properly, working in the farms, taking the produce to the markets, and so on.
We come for house, we cook, we chop. I'm a Mbwaye. We'll be washing clothes now, any man 1 month.
He can testify that my co-wife and I took turns each month to do the laundry, that is, the washing and ironing. Each child had a box. We would iron the clothes and put them in their boxes. He did not want any of us to wear unironed clothes on the children. I accompanied him to the mountain twice. I got to a place where there was a drum and 2 sticks.
If you know dance, you know go pass. If you dance,
when you get there for the first time, they would play the drum and you would dance before you proceed.
We go come back the same day.
Otherwise, you would not go through. I danced and I continued. We did not spend the night there. A plane also crashed on the other side. I accompanied my husband there as he was taking photographs of it.
This is what place they don't.
We saw the charred bodies of the occupants. He was wise enough to have taken the photographs, but his office now is so disorganized that he cannot find them anymore.
1962. I started bread at the sale.
I started making and selling bread in 1962. When we started getting only Nigerian flour, I turned to making donuts in 1974. I did that for 2 years, but stopped when I took ill. I can still prepare it, but the doctor said the heat from the fire is not good for my health.
Heat for fire, no fire for me again.
Bao.
Be lovely husband to me. He do everything for me. Be like my papa or my mom.
Mola was a loving husband to me. He was like a parent or my brother.
We care for the level we be there, or for the way we
He took care of the children according to his means. Although all of them did not attain higher education, they are all literate.
They go school, all they know for write their name in place. But if you try for same way, you know how
he traveled often, but always made sure he provided for the family. I lived well with my maid. We were like sisters. If you ask people here in Bukwango, they will tell you Mr. Mbwaye's home is the best. So we are living in harmony and raising our children well.
So we'll be there fine. We don't get no problem. We born with Piki, we look out there fine.
He was kind, he was caring. He could be somebody that we, the children, could be proud of.
Thank you for
as a father. There was even a time when we were small, he used to have people to come and tell us stories. They taught us riddles and jokes in the dialect. So it is there that we came to know the dialect.
There was no sign for me to understand that I come from a polygamous home, because the two mothers, from the day I was born till date, they are just like sisters. And I appreciate what God has done for us, because when my mother, I come and meet her with my stepmother and my father, the way they are not like husband and wife, they are just like brothers and a brother and sisters. So I've never experienced any quarrel among them for all this while to date. So I really learned a very good lesson from my father, the way he brought the family together. What I know is that our father is that type of a person who always like to unite us together. So most of the time, when we have our problems, we feel very free with him. When he too goes out, he's worried, he comes back, he would like to make us understand what is his problem. So we, the children, we have a very good relationship with him, because I think he always say the rightful persons around him that he can explain his problems are his children, because he considers us like the brothers and sisters, not like children again. So yeah, one thing which I admired so much in my dad is he's a peaceful man. He's somebody who likes, you cannot talk with him when you don't put God ahead. So if he's somebody who is deep, his spiritual relationship is too high. And then that has something that I admire most. He has a spirit of development. Because if I look at the community of, I can say the Southwest Province as a whole, what he has done from the days of Ijo, who was the head of state, if you look at the pictures in those days, you see what he used to do. And I think that there are so many things which I see how people walk to him to get information, and he still keeps dates and the pictures. If you look at the Buea archives, I think he's the person who is still there to direct people what to do and present to them certain facts.
He has been so good to us. All of us were equal. Yes, that is why we went to school. No discrimination, nothing. And taking care of a large family is not easy. So he has done his best. Yes. I see that he doesn't know how to manage finances when it is concerned. And of course, we used to advise him.
Papa happened to be to us like an icon. First of all, in our Christian life, when you look at it critically, when he was studying in Italy, he came up with, he tumbled to St. Martin de Porres, where he studied about his life and came back with his image back home. And the early Catholic Church Bokwango, he was among the people who founded it, who applied for the church to be in Bokwango. So he has that Catholic faith in him. So he has actually impounded that to us. I remember when we were children, we had a particular kind of bread that he gave us only on Sunday and only to those who went to church. And so it was no question. You go to church and you have it. And if you do not go, you'll be punished for that. So it was not like you go to church because you wanted, because you had to please Papa. So in the long run, we came to fall in love with the church. And so that Christianity came from that. And that's the greatest lesson I learned from him. And secondly, he's that kind of a person, very, very peaceful. I say very, very peaceful to a fault, because he's the family head. There are sometimes that family problems, we think that he should take a very hard stand. He doesn't. It says, keep quiet, God is going to take care. And he's that kind of peaceful person. So those are great two lessons that I have learned from him, and I will keep for the rest of my life. He's a simple man, really, really simple. When he told us that he was the first Bokwango man to have a car, and most of the ladies who were laboring, he took them to the hospitals and things like that. But yes, it's like faith has not been very good to him, because we hardly see people who come to appreciate. I hardly come to appreciate, but they talk about it. He did this, he did that, he did that. But I think God is going to reward him if he leaves this place one day when he's gone home. He gave us equal opportunity. The children all schooled in boarding schools, Catholic schools, Sase, Our Lady of Lords, St. Paul in Bonjongo, all those renowned schools in those days. They schooled there. But for us who came a bit late, I'm the last. I schooled in a public school. I don't regret the fact, because I was still very, very young when I knew Dad went on retirement. But his retirement was like, he was still very strong. I was like doubting, what kind of retirement? He's still very strong. But I think he did the best. School educated all his children. He did not discriminate boys. I have my elder sister who is a retired pharmacy attendant. The other one is still working with the veterinary. She's in Motengene. Mbwaye Lydia Ndolo Molango, who is with CRTV. She too, you see, all of them, the girls, they had a wonderful education. My eldest, one of them is in the US. So I think that he did his best to educate even the girls' children more. I think that he paid a little more attention to the girls, because in those days, the girls could easily be distracted. Yes, and a society where it was dominated by the male. Wanted the girls to be educated enough to withstand the shock of the men. While growing up, my stepmom is my mom. My brothers, total brothers, were not brought up to know that this one is this one is that. We have the same father. It's the same blood that runs in our veins. It's just who carried you in the womb. That's the difference. It's just total blend of a family. I think that's our force. That's truly our force. Because if you touch one, you've touched the entire family. It's not my mother's child. Oh no, we don't do that. He didn't bring us like that. In a total Christian way, this is a family and remains a family. In the early years, Dad had the opportunity to fly as many children out of the country, but he was not so much interested in that. So I think that was his greatest weakness. Though he educated us here back home, I'm a social worker. He supported me so much, but I think that is his own weakness.
Mbwaye may live a rather modest life today, but anyone with the slightest knowledge of what hard work and the recompense that goes with it would definitely find in this man a rare pearl. His work as a photographer and a teacher of photojournalism has earned him so much recognition, but those awards have never made him to lie on his laurels. What definitely gives him much pleasure is when he goes back to the Buea archives to reassess his photographic works, always recalling with camera lens precision the days and the events in which the pictures were taken.
President of the Association of Friends of Archives and Antiquities, Professor Fanso. He and Madame Adna are responsible for that creation of this organization that is reviving to see that the archives and antiquities of Cameroon are preserved. This is the first house of assembly. On the way to Upper Farms is this building where Southern Cameroon House of Assembly was held before the new building was put down there. That is Madame Shirley Adna, founder of these archives, as I said, 1960, and is working up to date to see that it is alive. We thank God for her.
Mr. Mbwaye was not only a photographer, he was also a devout Christian and a development luminary who wanted the community to enjoy the various social services like access to potable water. He also wanted his pictures to serve the development needs of the country. That probably is why he was influential in creating the tourism board, which became a major source of government income.
I was chairman of FACO Divisional Tourism Board. We started tourism board in the 60s with late Tamfu. We conducted International Year for African Tourism. We got souvenir items from Pumban, which we sold to tourists. We created the Jungle Village. Dr. Endeli and Mr. Neubeck founded up in a jungle inside Limbe, by the side of the Botanic Gardens. We operated the Mile 6 beach, where you could come and feed monkeys with your bananas and they go up the trees. They were camped there. So unlike in the zoo where you cage them, so people took delight. We had armed guards, divers, so people who were swimming were satisfied that their things were safe. We collected revenue from there. And so we were able to develop other touristic attractions from proceeds from one tourist attraction. Even Petit Merama operated a bar. They were paying rents to the board. And this one was helping us. We documented the hotels we had in the country and encouraged them. And because of these streams of tourists from Douala coming every weekend, all the hotels were full.
Mbwaye even deserves, he deserves the kind of recognition that the state has given to people who are roving ambassadors. Because a lot of his pictures have projected the image of this country outside, in Europe, in America, and so on. Because people who are making all the references and research on Cameroon from different parts of the world, even from the United Nations, their work has been facilitated with the kind of archives that Mbwaye kept.
But government policy does not seem to favor the development of tourism in Cameroon. Police harassment, numerous checkpoints, difficult access rules and paucity of information are some of the limiting factors. Still, Cameroon remains a blessed land. Its lush vegetation, its diverse wildlife, and its peoples all offer tourists reason to continue flocking into the country. But Mr. Mbwaye is not just comfortable with the factors that constitute a drag on the country's tourism potential.
You have to pay us, sir.
But then, if you put so many toll gates, so many checks by police and gendarmes, a man comes to a country as we have traveled. You are checked on entrance. You are not checked a million times en route. So tourists ran away. And when they made this toll gate between Tiko and Miselele, tourists opened a chapter for the tourists to go to Kribi, and it has become very difficult now to get tourists in the art stream we are saying. And tourists is travel. We encourage local tourists, you encourage foreign. Many of us don't even know areas of our own.
Archives are important for one thing. They are like voices from the past. But which voices reach into the future? They constitute the collective memory of a people and help to empower the present in order to shape the future. And so the need to preserve archives like these cannot be better captured than by the words of the American President Thomas Jefferson, who says it is important to save what remains, not by vaults and locks which fence them from the public eye and use in consigning them to the waste of time, but by such a multiplication of copies as shall place them beyond the reach of accident.
You see here is the Queen of England and the husband.
This basically is what is now happening in the archives in Buea. Converting these volumes into electronic format is no doubt about the best thing that can ever happen to the Cameroon information base. And those who contributed to the making of that content, like Mr. Mbwaye, can now walk away confident that their lifetime work will constitute a source of deep knowledge for generations yet unborn.